Alrighty, now on to Beggar. Beggar by Revan. Eslaf Errol was the last of the litter of 5 born to the queen of the prosperous Nordic kingdom of Erlgard, La Percopa, and her husband, the king of Erlgard, Utlaf. During the pregnancy, the queen had been more than twice as wide as she was tall, and the act of delivery took 3 months and 6 days after it had begun. It is perhaps understandable that the La Percopa elected, upon expelling Eslaf, to frown, say good riddance, and die. Like many Nords, Utlaf did not care very much for his wife and less for his children. His subjects were puzzled, therefore, when he announced that he would follow the ancient tradition of his people of Atmora, of following his beloved spouse to the grave. They had not thought they were particularly in love, nor were they aware that such a tradition existed. Still, the simple people were grateful for the little royal drama alleviated their boredom, which was and is a common problem in the more obscure parts of northern Skyrim, particularly in wintertide. He gathered his household staff and his 5 fat, bowling little heirs in front of him and divided his estates. To his son, he gave his title. To his son, Lernu, he gave his land. To his son, Soybud, he gave his fortune. And to his daughter, Lasifitra, he gave his army. Utlif's advisors had suggested he keep the inheritance together for the good of his kingdom, but Utlif did not particularly care for his advisors, or the kingdom for that matter. Upon making his announcement, he drew his dagger across his throat. One of the nurses, who was rather shy, finally decided to speak as the king's life ebbed away. "Your Highness, you forgot your 5th child, little Eslaf." "Good," Utlif groaned. "It is somewhat hard to concentrate with blood gushing from one's throat, after all." The king tried in vain to think of something to bequeath, but there was nothing left. Finally, he spurted irritably, "Eslaf should have taken something then," and died. That a babe but a few days old was expected to demand his rightful inheritance was arguably unfair. But so Eslaf Errol was given his birthright with his father's dying breath. He would have nothing but what he had taken. Since no one else would have him, the shy nurse, whose name was Druzba, took the baby home. It was a decrepit little shack, and over the years that followed, it became more and more decrepit. Unable to find work, Druzba sold all of her furnishings to buy food for little Eslaf. By the time he was old enough to walk and talk, she had sold the walls and the roof as well, so they had nothing but a floor to call home. And if you have ever been to Skyrim, you can appreciate that this is scarcely sufficient. Druzba did not tell Eslaf the story of his birth, or that his brothers and sisters were leading quite nice lives with their inheritances. For, as we have said, she was rather shy and found it difficult to broach the subject. She was so painfully shy, in fact, that whenever he asked any questions about where he came from, Druzba would run away. That was more or less her answer to everything: to flee. In order to communicate with her at all, Eslaf learned how to run almost as soon as he could walk, for he couldn't keep up with his adopted mother at first, but in time he learned to go toe heel, if he anticipated a short but fast sprint, and heel toe if it seemed Druzba was headed for a long-distance marathon flight. He never did get all his answers that he needed from her, but Eslaf did learn how to run. The kingdom of Erlgard had, in the years that Eslaf was growing, become quite a grim place. King Uhope did not have a treasury, for Saibad had been given that. He did not have any property for income, for Larnu had been given that. He did not have any army to protect the people, for Lysifitra had been given that. Furthermore, as he was but a child, all decisions in the kingdom went through Vnop's rather corrupt council. It had become a bureaucratic exploitative land of high taxes, rampant crime, and regular incursions from neighboring kingdoms. Not a particularly unusual situation for the kingdom of Tamriel, but an unpleasant one nonetheless. The time finally came when the tax collector arrived to Druzba's hovel, such as it was, to collect the only thing he could, the floor. Rather than protest, the poor shy maid ran away, and Eslav never saw her again. Without a home or a mother, Eslav did not know what to do. He had grown accustomed to the cold, open air in Druzba's shack, but he was hungry. "May I have a piece of meat?" he asked the butcher down the street. "I am very hungry." The man had known the boy for years, often spoke to his wife about how sorry he felt for him. Growing up in the home with no ceilings or walls, he smiled at Eslav and said, "Go away or I'll hit you." Eslav hurriedly left the butcher and went to the nearby tavern. The tavern keeper had been a former valet in the king's court and knew that the boy was by right a prince. Many times he had seen the poor ragged lad in the streets and sighed at the way fate had treated him. "May I have something to eat?" Eslav asked this tavern keeper. "I'm very hungry." "You're lucky I don't cook you up and eat you," replied the tavern keeper. Eslav hurriedly left the tavern. For the rest of the day, the boy approached the good citizens of Erlgard begging for food. One person had thrown something at him, but it turned out to be an inedible rock. As night fell, a raggedy man came to Eslav and, without saying a word, handed him a piece of fruit and a piece of dried meat. The lad took it, wide-eyed, as he devoured it. He thanked the man very sweetly. "If I see you begging in the streets tomorrow," the man growled, "I'll kill you myself. There are only so many beggars we of the guild allow in any one town, and you make it one too many. You're ruining business." It was a good thing Eslav Arrow knew how to run. He ran all night. Eslav Arrow's story is continued in the book Thief. Alrighty, boys. I will see you in the next one.